Brian Fisher.
Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. I want to jump right into the soundbite. Had an opportunity on Saturday to be on David Shuster's radio program. He used to be on MSNBC. He got bounced, invited me on to talk about gay marriage and slavery, and here's how our conversation went. Let's listen.
Welcome back to Take Action News, everybody. David Shuster here. This is the show where we like to talk about what's going on in the world and what you can do to influence outcomes. And joining us now is Brian Fisher. He's a nationally syndicated Christian radio host. He's also the director of issue analysis for the American Family Association, the host of Focal Point. He has a long history of anti-gay activism. Mr. Fisher, welcome to the program.
David, good to be with you.
Good to have you. Brian, I know that you have said in the past that that gay marriage is a threat to traditional marriage, and I want to try to explore that first because I'm not sure I understand. To me, my marriage can only be threatened if perhaps I'm somehow attracted to somebody else, or if that couple down the street is attracted to me. Because I'm not worried about attraction to homosexuals or lesbians, I don't consider gay marriage to be a threat to mine. How is it possibly a threat to yours unless you are attracted to gays and lesbians?
Well, counterfeit marriage, David, it devalues the institution of marriage. When you recognize marriages or call them marriages that are not legitimate marriages, it devalues the currency of marriage. It's like somebody putting counterfeit currency into circulation. Now, one counterfeit 20 may not affect the value of the currency in my wallet, but if you flood a culture with counterfeit currency, pretty soon it impacts the value of the currency in your wallet.
But isn't that what we're doing now by declaring that gay marriage is in fact legal and legitimate? And therefore, again, back to the original question, are you threatened? Are you personally threatened by the gay couple that gets married in your neighborhood?
Well, we have to think about, David, it's a larger issue of concern for children. If you recognize gay marriage, you place children into homosexual households, we know that that's not the optimal nurturing environment for children. So if we as a culture care about
how do we know that
for the most vulnerable members of our society, we want to put them in a household which provides the optimal nurturing environment for them, and that is in a home where they're raised by their biological parents who are married to each other.
Well, look, I'm going to reject your contention that it's not a nurturing environment. In fact, I think studies have shown that that kids who have two parents, regardless of their sex, actually do grow up in a more nurturing environment than parents who have one, or parents where there is a father and mother where there may be some sort of violence. But look, I understand that from your perspective that the Bible says that gay marriage is an abomination. And I guess my question is, if you're going to cite sections of the Bible, why not do you also therefore believe in slavery? Because Leviticus 25:44 says that we can have slavery as long as they come from neighboring nations, or that we should be able to sell our daughters into slavery as sanctioned by Exodus 21-7.
Well, let's go back to your contention that same-sex households provide the same nurturing environment for children that heterosexual households do. We simply know, as a matter of fact, that that's not true. Mark Regnerus at the University of Texas did the most extensive research into this. And
that's been widely discredited, Brian.
Children that are raised in same-sex households fare worse on 77 out of 80 total outcomes than children who were raised in intact homes by their biological parents. All
right. Well, that study has been widely discredited, but let's go back to the Bible. Again, do you support slavery? Do you support selling of daughters into slavery, burning bulls on the sacrifice? Because those are all part of the Bible.
Well, David, back to your Mark Regnerus, you dismissed his research, but the University of Texas, and again, University of Texas, that's the flagship university in the state of Texas. It's not a part of the vast right-wing conspiracy. They have a research integrity office, and they investigated his research methods. They gave him a clean bill of health. They said this research is valid, the methodology is valid. This is an important part of the discussion over homosexual marriage. So you're simply wrong when you say that research has been discredited.
Well, Brian, I think you're wrong when it comes to the Bible specifically. Let me ask you, do you believe that the University of Texas, say the Stanford University, where you went to school, that they should fire all female professors? Because the Bible, the New Testament, Timothy 2-11 says, I permit no woman to teach or have authority over men. She is to keep silent. So if we're going to take the Bible literally, shouldn't you be calling for universities to fire female college professors?
Well, David, if we take the Bible literally, then that's a reference to what should happen inside the church.
Well, that's not how I read it. That's not how a lot of other people read it. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to take that argument that this is how it should be done inside the church, nobody is saying that churches should be forced to marry gay couples. Some of them choose not to do so, and that's fine. The question is whether our society should allow gay marriage and gay couples.
Well, let's go back. I want to go back to your slavery issue just for a moment, because you're simply flat wrong, David, about the Bible's teaching on slavery. If you go to Exodus 21, verse 16, it couldn't be any plainer. Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death. That's the kind of slavery that was practiced in the United States. And
Ryan, Leviticus 25:44 states that I may possess slaves, both male and female, provided they are purchased from neighboring nations. So according to you, if we are going to follow the Bible, the only question is, does this apply to Mexicans or Canadians?
I'm sorry, you didn't let me finish my thought, David. May I finish my thought?
Yeah, go ahead, finish your thought.
Yeah, what I was explaining, David, is according to Exodus 21, anyone who engaged in the kind of slavery that we practiced in the United States of America would have been put to death under the ancient code of Israel, because it involved stealing men and selling them to slave traders. And they were stolen, by the way, in Africa by fellow Africans, sold to white slave traders. And if the scriptural directive had been followed, we never would have had the institution of slavery on American shores.
Brian, do you believe that children should be disciplined with stones, that you should discipline your child by throwing against a stone wall? Because Psalm 137-9 says, "Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones." Do you support child abuse?
Well, David, you got to go back and look at that in context. And what the psalmist is writing about there is the enemies of the nation of Israel invaded them, and that's what the enemies of Israel did to their babies. They grabbed them from their mothers, they beat their heads against the rocks and killed them. And the psalmist says, look, someday somebody is going to do that to them, because God's justice, the wheels of justice may grind slowly, but they grind exceedingly fine.
But Brian, you get the point, don't you? That, I mean, here you are taking the Bible literally to say that here you are taking the Bible literally to say that gay couples, lesbian couples, that's somehow a biblical abomination. And yet we can find all sorts of chapters and verses, the Old Testament, the New Testament, which you believe you like to cite more often, that support all kinds of things that if we take literally would cause complete chaos in this society. And my point is, why is it that you feel so obligated, and why do you feel so focused on gays and focusing the Bible on gays when there are all sorts of other issues that you pay no attention to?
Well, David, the reality is that you don't pay attention to what we say, because I've said frequently on my program that homosexuality is not the only thing that's described in the Old Testament as an abomination. Haughty eyes are described as an abomination.
Right, playing with a pigskin on the Sabbath is published. Playing with
false weights, cheating somebody in business, that's also an abomination. And David, I've said these things repeatedly. If you're not paying attention, that's hardly my fault.
Well, I am paying attention to the verse that says that those who violate the Sabbath should be stoned. Or that.
So that was my conversation with David Shuster. He's an uber left winger. And what I've learned with these guys is you got to stay on message. If he's going to bring up marriage, you talk about what you want to say no matter what he does.